Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together.
Howdy, y'all. Randall Laughlin here. We're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, and I'm kind of excited in many ways. My brain is still twisting around as to how I want to open this thing. But I was thinking, when you start driving a car and you're driving and you're not staying in the lines, or you can't quite get the parallel parking down, or this, we are in a learning mode and we get feedback says, okay, this is not right. We're not doing what we need to do. In classes, you get a grade and it says, okay, you're B or C or an A. We're getting feedback. Yet in life, we don't always get that feedback. And that's partly one of the most important things we need. Yeah, we get sick every once in a while. We get a cold, we get this. But then all of a sudden you end up, I got a cancer the size of a baseball. Well, I never got any warning. So let's talk today about accidental aging. Let me go ahead and load up my slides because that's really where I need to be. There we go, the first one. So the quiet decisions that shorten our lives. This show is for awareness and education. It's live streamed in so many different parts of our digital world. We have it on Amazon Fire, on over half a dozen Facebook channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, E360 TV, which distributes it to LG and Samsung and Amazon Fire and Amazon. I mean, it's out there everywhere. It's live. We end up with segments going on to TikTok and other places. We end up with the audio streams on the podcasts, Spotify, et cetera. So it just goes out to the world. And so let's move on from that one. And I'm Red O'Laughlin. My website is redolaughlin.com. That's a red like the color RED. O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN.com, Red O'Laughlin. My books are there. My content, over 1,500 blogs I've written, probably several hundred videos. It's lots and lots of stuff available. The view that I used to have prior to January 1st, 2026 was that my primary focus was I research and I make things available for awareness and education. I write health and wellness, and I focus on longevity, age-related issues. But what I'm really looking at now that I'm trying to not necessarily reframe things, but to get a better understanding of who I am and what I'm doing is I look at the cellular level. I mean, right down in the cellular level of the body, chemically, biologically, what's going on, and I try to take that information and translate it so people can have decisions to act on. In some cases, something they can do by themselves. In other cases, it's best that they talk to their doctor about it. But I look at what can you do to help yourself? What can you do that makes things worse? Many times we don't know we're making things worse. But I consider myself now an author of decision support manuals for aging humans, as opposed to just writing for health and wellness for aging. So anyway, my background, researcher, never been in the medical or pharmaceutical fields, done a lot of failure analysis on various things in the industries I've been in. My first degree was in chemistry. I got 5 academic degrees, a bunch of professional certifications. My primary expertise is in quality assurance, quality engineering, reliability engineering, logistics engineering. I retired from the Navy after 31 years as a captain. I was a naval aviator. I think I flew for 16 years, been to 62 countries, got an invitation to Vietnam and to Bosnia, beginning and end of my careers. I look at cause and effect relationships. That's what I did in the last several years in the corporate world, whether they happen right there in the plant that I was at, which happened, or whether they happen in some foreign country. Something failed. Why did it fail? Okay, well, why did that contribute to the failure? We go down about 6, 7, 8 levels of failure to find out what was the root cause. So if we can treat the cause of the problem, it shouldn't happen again. But if not, all we're doing is treating symptoms and the cause is still there and things could be getting worse and we just never know about it. So on a personal note, I've been married 57 years. I got 2 kids, 3 grandkids, and my first great grandson will be 2 years of age here in literally about 3 weeks. Best-selling author, 7 books, independent publisher. I've done 50 books for other authors. Distinguished Toastmaster, writer. I have over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, mostly dealing with health and wellness. And international TV host. This last year, 2025, I was very fortunate to be selected as the number 3 on the hosting categories. Accidental Aging, my book Longevity Secrets on Healthy Aging, covers a couple aspects of what we're talking today. But as I get into it, it'll be very, very interesting because the things we do every single day are what determines how long we're going to live and how healthy we're going to be. As always, this information is for educational purposes only. So many times we're told how to succeed. You know, we have training, we have this, we have grades, we have all sorts of things. So we know what we're doing, we get a little feedback, and it's where. So, but sometimes things don't always work out, and we don't know. I mean, I used to military. I'd fly. We were stationed in Hawaii. We'd fly back to the United States, and we jokingly say, "Okay, you're flying back a couple thousand miles, and if all of a sudden you land and they speak French, you're not in America. If they speak Spanish, you're not in America." It was kind of a joke, but sometimes incrementally things happen and we end up veering off in a different direction, but we don't know it until we actually get to our destination that it's the wrong destination. So we should be aware of not only what it takes to succeed in our health, but what also it takes to fail in our health. One of the programs that I did toward the end of my Navy career was training, and I taught the course, me and several other people, on prospective commanding and executive officers. In other words, these are people that were selected for command and hadn't been there yet. And we would have a weekend course. And I take a look at the curriculum, and the first thing that dawned on me was that there's nothing in there telling them how they lose their job. So I developed a process, ran it through the system. And so the first lecture we ever do is, okay, you're selected for command. What can you do to lose it? What can you do to get your butt kicked out of the Navy? What can you do to get your butt put to jail? If you don't know what it's going to take to fail, how are you going to succeed or make sure you don't do the wrong things? That's kind of the situation I'm looking at here today. So that philosophy applies to health and aging and everything else in our lives. So I've talked about the hallmarks of aging. I've talked about the hallmarks of health. And in both cases, literally 90% of the decisions that we make on a daily basis, called lifestyle choices, those choices, if they're good choices, we have good health, we age well, we enjoy ourselves. But what happens when we make the unhealthy lifestyle choices? That's what we're going to get into today. What happens? So people do stupid things, not because they want to fail. We just do stupid things. But it's when we keep doing the same stupid things over and over and over and over again, that's become a problem. So if you're doing something accidentally you don't know about, there's an cumulative effect that says, hey, you're going to have a problem down the road, but you should be aware of it. So this cumulative effect becomes a habit. We do it every day. We don't even know what we don't know. We don't even know we're doing it in many cases. But the lifestyle choices are to eat right, to exercise, to sleep, get good quality sleep, to manage our stress. There's several of them out there. So lifestyle choices. If aging and retirement health are not random, and they're based on what we do every single day. So let's look at what happens at the cellular level if I'm not making good decisions. That's what I think is super critical for us. So I've mentioned many times that chronic low-level cellular inflammation is the source of literally almost every disease. You start at the cellular level, 24/7, your DNA are being bombarded by free radicals. If your immune system is in good shape and you're getting the right nutrients, all those little nuances that happen, they're nits, they get fixed and we continue on in life. But if they don't get fixed, that inflammation that's there continuously now bleeds over into what's called oxidative stress. Now we start seeing mutations that can happen that necessarily they get their foot under the door and they're almost ready to do something. So as those things happen, this inflammation causes problems. And so our mitochondrial, that's our energy source for everything in our body, every cell, starts to decline. And we feel tired, we're fatigued, muscle weakness, brain fog, term called exercise intolerance. Used to exercise all the time. I just don't feel like it today. Maybe start having some digestive issues, some diarrhea, some constipation, some just very upset stomach. So a lot of things there. We start getting our circadian rhythm disrupted, where I'm going to sleep at the same time all the time. We're stressed out. I'm laying in bed for hours trying to go to sleep and I can't. I'm wide awake. It weakens our immune system. Our bodies don't get repaired like they used to. When you go to sleep, that first couple, 3 hours, that's when the body really focuses on getting all the cells repaired as much as they can. So we end up with an increased risk of metabolic disease. That's your diabetes and any type of cardiovascular disease. We might have insulin spikes if you're non-diabetic. And so if I have 2-3 pieces of something, cake pie, that it's going to spike my insulin, I'm not paying attention. Maybe I should have just one cookie. Okay. But I end up with 4 or 5. I spike my insulin. I end up with energy fluctuations. I'm off the chart. And then I fall down. Brain fog, mood changes, ends up sometimes with sleep disruption, weight gain, big one. Our environmental load. It's what we're exposed to, our plastics, our toxins and metals. A lot of things we have there, particularly in personal care products, are endocrine disruptors. And it can cause infertility, PCOS, obesity, ADHD, end up in some cases lower IQ, hypertension, altered immune function, just not working the way it used to. Lots of things can happen there. As you get older, you start looking at muscle loss and masquerades as normal aging, sarcopenia. You sit there and used to have, nice biceps. Now all of a sudden they're an inch less, or an inch less again. Now all of a sudden you start some hanging things underneath your arms. Where'd those come from? But you end up with reduced strength. Your walking is slower. Your gait is less. You're more susceptible to falls. May even end up in that category of loss of independence because you can't take care of yourself. You end up in the category of disability, frailty, higher mortality rate. Might become dependent on a cane or a walker. Lots of things happen because of that muscle loss. And it's not something that it happens every day. We could do something to prevent it, but we don't. Exercise intolerance, for instance. Cognitive reserve erosion. I don't create these words. It's just part of what comes out of the research. But our ability to think starts to erode decades before we actually get into what was called dementia. So we end up with subtle memory issues. Oh, we're up with the keys. What's that person's name? Where am I supposed to be? Why did I walk into this room? I got all of those. Yep. Complexity reigns. This thing didn't seem to be that complex. Why am I getting upset with something I could do easily? We can't remember the right word that we need to use for a situation. Those things happen all the time as you get older. Sometimes it's just normal aging. But if I'm not doing the things I need to do correctly, I'm doing more poor things than correct things. Maybe that's part of the problem. And those are clues. Our reasoning, our judgment errors, our personality, our mood changes. Getting lost is an easy one. I drive and I'm talking to my wife and I know I'm going to that particular store and all of a sudden, oh, there goes that store. Because I get so involved with the conversation that I'm not paying attention to something else, or I'm driving and where am I at? Those things happen. Irritability, social withdrawal. We accidentally destroy our health incrementally. It's not something, you can end up in an accident, you can fall, you can do a lot of things, and it happens, boom, trauma right now. But the decisions we make every day in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, those become a habit. So then in your 60s and 70s, you're maintaining that habit. But the incremental accumulation over time can be very damaging. And again, most of this damage that happens is silent, it's preventable, but it's cumulative. And when you start taking, I got a headache, okay, I take an aspirin. Got a headache again, take another. Something causing the headache, I'm just taking something to treat the symptom. I'm not treating the cause of that headache. So the medications miss the mark to cure or protect because they're treating the symptoms, not the cause. And so that becomes a big, big deal. But healthy aging is about not making fatal mistakes. So if I can eat right, exercise right, take care of my stress, sleep correctly, I can position myself to be in my 80s and 90s and even hundreds and not have to worry about somebody else changing my diaper. I have a level of health that I can take care of myself. So, but look at yourself in the mirror. If you're over 50, you might look okay, maybe a little extra around the middle, but do you see aging? You see lines in your face, etc. But sometimes you're a little bit young, you don't see anything. So there's a lot of invisible risks that are not prominent in most of us. We can't look inside our bodies and see a tumor beginning to happen or some kind of other issue there that really will pop up down the road. And we think we're doing pretty good. We're not as bulletproof as we used to be as teenagers and in our young 20s. And so maybe you might ask yourself the question, maybe we need some guardrails to lock in our future health, that we don't go bouncing outside of the realm of, if I stay in this lane and the guardrails keep me in that lane, I should be able to age and enjoy my life down the road. So what are these guardrails? What they might be? Well, let's now dive down into the cellular level of the body. It's the area that I love to be in. So at the lowest level, I've told it, I can't tell you just about every topic I talk about on the shows in the last several months. Happy, productive mitochondria, happy life. It's just, that's the way it is. You keep your mitochondria healthy and you will be a healthy camper, happy camper. But if you're not eating right, maybe some of the micronutrient deficiencies, the minerals, the enzymes, the vitamins, they impair the mitochondrial's ability to produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That's the energy our body uses. Every cell produces this. So if I'm not getting what I need, I'm not getting the level of energy I need. So when that happens, it also reduces our DNA's ability to repair itself by generating the right enzymes that's needed in our bodies. We end up disrupting our neurotransmitter, the ones that operate our brain. We have the transmissions that go between all our organs, our muscles and everything, through the vagus nerve into the brain and back and forth. So you end up with, because you're not eating right, you're disrupting that neurotransmitter issue, that communications channel. Okay, so early stage dementia, 40 years down the road, it might happen. What happens if you have excess sugar or a lot of ultra processed foods? You start increasing what's called insulin resistance. In other words, they knock on the door, nobody answers, they can't give you the food. The blood is still full of glucose. The pancreas thinks, hey, something's wrong. I got too much glucose in the blood. I need to produce more insulin. Now the insulin's being produced again. It's still knocking on the door, but the cells aren't opening. Lots of issues with insulin resistance. Many issues can be there. Triggers a chronic low-level inflammation, cellular. And it also increases what happens when we have AGEs, the advanced glycation end products. When you're cooking at very high temperature, you start seeing sear marks on things. But the cooking method becomes very, very critical. Not only the food choices, but how you prepare them. Choosing a poor quality protein. Maybe it has toxins in it, preservatives, artificial colors, lots of things there. I talk about when you're on a particular kind of diet. There you go. One of those, can't find the right words. The Walls Protocol. They talk about having good quality protein. I talk about changing your protein out every 48 hours. Don't eat the same protein 2 days in a row. You end up accelerating your muscle tolerance with poor quality protein. Again, sarcopenia, weakened immune cell response, regeneration. Lots of things are happening because you're not getting the nutrients to where they need. They don't exist. They can't create what they need to create. Uh, some of the early signs of dietary poor choices are fatigue, brain fog, poor focus, muscle weakness, mood changes, anxiety. Some of the long-term health risks: type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dementia. That's part of that neurodegeneration we talked about a moment ago. Impaired immune system. You start screwing around with your immune system, that is what protects you from a lot of diseases. So if the body is overwhelmed by inflammation, now it becomes overwhelmed by oxidative stress, you're opening the door to mutations that could cause some cancers. And the immune system can't help you. The hallmarks of aging exacerbated by this what's called mitochondrial dysfunction, chronic inflammation, loss of proteostasis. Uh, when you have proteostasis, the cell is taking care of itself. When you start losing it, it's like the cell's quality control system starts calling in sick. There's nobody there to take care of the proteins folding right and doing things that need to be done. And so that becomes an issue that the cell is no longer fully functional. Genomic instability. The genes are not responding the way they're supposed to be responding. Deregulated nutrient sensing. The vitamins and minerals are there, but the cells don't recognize them. Lots of things are happening, and these are called hallmarks of aging. So, and like I said, I did a whole session on each one of those. What happens when you add toxins and contaminants, heavy metals? Damage goes right straight to the mitochondria directly. You start disrupting that the nerve aspect of the signaling, again, to the brain. Pesticides, herbicides on your foods, your meats, whatever, they interfere with the mitochondrial enzymes. A lot of damage to the gut, to the microbiome. Microplastics, that's something I've been very, very focused on here in the last 3 months. Endocrine disruptors, again, a lot of personal care products. They mimic or they block hormones. They disrupt your thyroid, your estrogen, your testosterone signaling. And the typical symptoms from this kind of herbicide, toxin, contamination are headaches, brain fog. It's almost getting to a point you can't tell what's causing my headache, what's causing my brain fog, because there's too many of them out there causing the same thing. But in this particular case, the toxins and stuff cause fertility issues, immune dysfunction. Some of the disease risk is neurodegenerative disease, but again, it's a decade thing developing. Hormone-driven cancers, metabolic syndrome. Again, your diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Some of the hallmarks of aging are exacerbated by mitochondrial dysfunction. It's just not working the way it's supposed to. Stem cell exhaustion. Our bodies create new stem cells, but when we take away the ability to it, now the stem cells that would be used to replace broken and diseased and aged cells in the body, wherever they are needed, are no longer there. Altered intercellular communication. Somebody knocks on the door and nobody recognizes who's there or what the knocking is for. The communications is super critical, but we're not seeing it. Physical inactivity, exercise, a big one, reduces mitochondrial density. In other words, I have cells, I get a lot of mitochondria in each cell. If I exercise, I'm going to get more. If I'm looking at ATP being the production and the energy, well, if I have more mitochondria, I should have more energy. Well, if I'm not exercising, I'm now pushing myself into an area where I am not getting the energy levels that I need. That becomes a big deal. And it's easily fixed with some level of exercise, not overnight, but certainly fixable. It decreases insulin receptor sensitivity, again, an insulin resistant issue. Accelerates muscle fiber apoptosis, that's the killing of the muscle cells. Decreases myokine signaling. You get a lot of different kinds of cytokines and hormones and they signal back and forth. The mitokines are the ones that are dealing with the muscles and the skeletal system, and they're basically talking to the brain just like every other part of the body. But there's no 100% back and forth between what's going on in my body, muscular wise, and there. And so I'm not generating the kinds of products that I need to keep myself healthy. Symptoms include reduced stamina, joint stiffness, weight gain, insulin resistance. Some of the diseases, frailty, falls, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And if I'm looking at the hallmarks, mitochondrial dysfunction, stem cell exhaustion, cellular senescence. Cellular senescence, we talked about before as being zombie cells. These are cells that should have gone through the process of apoptosis, killing themselves, suicide, but they don't. They're survivors, and now they're out there and they're creating all sorts of havoc because they're supposed to be dead, but they're zombies and they're wandering around your body. Stem cell exhaustion, cellular senescence. Again, the normal method that the cell kills itself because it's at the end of its life and it's time to be replaced by a stem cell. Poor quality sleep weakens the body's repair capability. It impairs the that's your brain lymphatic system for clearing stuff out of the brain. It disrupts your circadian rhythm, the gene expression that's in there, elevates cortisol, inflammation. If you notice you have a little bit of extra inches around the gut, that's one of the things that cortisol loves to do is store fat around the gut. Some of the symptoms for poor quality sleep is memory problems, poor glucose control, again, weight gain, mood stability, weakened immune system, typical diseases associated with it, AD, obesity, hypertension, depression, and again, some of the hallmarks associated with that one, again, loss of proteostasis, genomic instability, and chronic inflammation. Chronic stress, something we all walk through all the time. And this stress can be psychological, it can be emotional. But when we have this chronic stress, it yields a persistent demand for cortisol. So we end up with cortisol being elevated. Cortisol it loves fat. And so it's going to do its best to keep itself in the mode of storing fat. You end up with a suppressed immune system. Our telomeres, at the very end of our DNA, the DNA wraps around itself. Well, the thing that ties it together is a telomere. And that telomere, every time the cell becomes two, it replicates, you lose just a little bit of that telomere at the very, very end of the DNA. Well, when you lose that, that's part of the signal that eventually over time, that telomere is going to get so short that it doesn't have enough telomere left to make a new replication. That's a signal that tells the cell, time to die. That's it, no mas. And so that's part of our genetics. That's part of the sequence. So, but you get there sometimes and it tells the cell to die and there's a disconnect because it's been disrupted. The cell never got the word to automatically kill itself. It's now living a zombie life because part of the problem is we weren't doing the things we needed to do to take care of ourselves. So, suppressed immune function, increased telomere, okay, and elevated oxidative stress. Again, an area that you're now allowing DNA mutations and other things to occur that should never even be in consideration. Some of the symptoms, anxiety, poor sleep, abdominal fat, that's a big one. And when you start getting enough of that abdominal fat, that almost acts like another organ in the body. It has its own life support system, its own, I almost call it like an alien life form. It's you never were intended to have that as an organ, but it acts like an organ. It has its own demands. It has its own things that happen, not always good. So that abdominal fat gain is a big, big deal. And it's also something very difficult to get rid of because you're not getting what you need. Back up here, we're talking about stress. We're talking about the ability of the body's immune system to fight off infections becomes non-existent. So you end up with not only an infection, but something you can't get rid of. Typically you're in and out of a cold in 2 or 3, 4 days, boom. And all of a sudden you can't. You got the runny nose, you got a cough, you got a sore throat, and it lasts for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. These are things that are part of you're not taking care of the stress you need to do. One of the factors. There may be others. Probably are. Disease risk with not taking care of your stress. Cardiovascular disease, big one. Autoimmune issues, again, if your immune system is not taking care of it properly or it's generating other issues. Accelerated aging, some of the hallmarks you see, telomere attrition, it's being eroded off at a much faster. Let's say if I'm living a good life, and my telomere loses that much each time, and the telomere is pretty long, okay, I can live with that. That's gives me good life. But if I'm overweight, if I'm smoking, if I'm doing other things, now I'm losing this much telomere length as opposed to that much. That cell is going to die a lot faster, and it's probably going to cause a lot of other issues. Uh, Cellular senescence, again, the issue of getting the cell to its long life. The cell has done its job. It's now time to retire, and the immune system clears it out of the body because it's part of the debris that happens as our normal life. Alter intercellular communications. Every part of the body talks to each other, and if you start disrupting that communications level, it just creates all sorts of problems because we're not making the enzymes, we're not making the nutrients that are not being recognized properly. Things in the body are not working the way they're supposed to. Okay. Smoking, alcohol. A lot of issues happen with that. DNA adduct formation. When you end up with overabundance of smoke or alcohol, the DNA has, like you get into the covalent bonding of all that stuff there in the DNA, but you have a chemical connection between the DNA and another part of the cellular formation down there. It's called an adduct. And that adduct now causes the DNA. The DNA used to be able to do all sorts of things, but now all of a sudden you're slowing it down. It's like I can walk at 3 miles an hour, but I get this adduct here and an adduct here and an adduct here. All of a sudden, now the DNA can't even walk a mile an hour because it's impaired. You're more susceptible to DNA mutations because it can't do what it needs to do. A lot of issues happen because of that. Mitochondrial poisoning, impaired liver detoxification. All the things that we're looking to have happen that normally work, our mitochondria, they're not working, the liver's not working. So we end up with an increased mutational burden. In other words, the level, the risk, the ability of our bodies to create mutations grows, and the ability to support those mutations grows because that life form inside that tumor cell is driving the picture rather than your immune system driving the picture. Diseases typically associated with that are cancer, liver disease, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and some of the hallmarks of aging are genomic instability, cellular senescence, and mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, like I said, anytime you see the word mitochondrial, that is a buzzword. That is what makes your body as healthy and happy as it can be. Social isolation. My wife and I talk about this fairly often. We have friends, some of them are just social butterflies, and other ones you can't get out of the house no matter what. But social isolation is not something you want when you get older. Some people don't even want it when they're younger. But it's part of our physiology, our emotional makeup of our body is to be in contact with other people. You go up and you hug somebody, oxytocin is generated. That's a kind of an anti-stress hormone. And the longer you hold somebody, let's say I hold my wife for 10 seconds, I get a certain level of oxytocin my body produces. But in this isolation, is you're not producing stuff that you normally do. So it increases our body's inflammatory cytokines. These are little messengers that go out that shouldn't be going out. And they're telling, do this bad stuff over here. And it happens. The bad stuff is created. It never should have been. So now you're telling the wrong things to do something that they shouldn't be doing. So anyway, it suppresses the immune surveillance, and your typical diseases are dementia, cardiovascular, and depression. And those are just a few. I try to keep the thing down to where on a slide I can just keep everything. But in many cases, there are other things out there that can happen. I chose the ones that I felt were most realistic to present. Hallmarks of aging that are exacerbated by poor quality daily lifestyle choices is altered intercellular communication and chronic inflammation. We don't wake up old. It takes, daily choices that we make that are poor every single day. And the thing is, we don't even know that we're doing something. Well, maybe we do. I'm not exercising. I'm eating too much sugar. I'm staying up late. I can't get to sleep. Nobody stresses me. We take that to the bank that I'm not stressed. And so we don't do the things that we should be doing. So these decisions that we're making that we now become habit forming now determine your longevity. They're going to determine your health at 50, 60, 70, 80 years of age. And in reality, there's nothing there that you can't fix. Is it possible to reverse? Yep, you betcha. And you can start today. Uh, early 26 now. Is early 26 January 1st, like today? Could be. There's nothing wrong with starting today. But sometimes we want to celebrate a little bit more with family and friends later on. I have a dinner in about an hour with some neighbors. I'm going to certainly enjoy myself. But I also know that if I don't push myself, let's say that I eat and take care of myself, my lifestyle choices are really good 6 days in a row. Can I have a bad day? Yeah. One bad day is not going to cancel out 6 good days. But what happens is I have one bad day, and then, that was pretty nice. Let me have 2 bad days. Then 2 bad days, 3 bad days, and all of a sudden, okay, let me get back on my program. I have 1 good day and 6 bad days. That's what the problem is. So if I want to look at this thing, what are some of the past? What are some of the choices I can make? Well, if I'm looking at lifestyle choices, I'm pretty much sure that this is it. Okay. Poor diet. We're talking about now, we're feeding our cells the mitochondria. So if I'm feeding the right kind of nutrients, I'm going to control inflammation. I'm going to reduce the level of inflammation at the cellular level, reduce the risk of oxidation. I'm going to give the mitochondrial the foods that it needs to produce energy for me. If I have some kind of activity problem, even if it's just walking, something that I'm going to get my muscles activated. We're going to start looking at our muscle stem cells being more productive. We're going to look at more mitochondrial density within the cells being created. Poor sleep. Lots of issues there. That's a hard one to correct in many cases, because we have a habit of going to bed late, waking up tired, and we sleep in on the weekend. But the sleep allows, almost like we talk about autophagy, it allows our cells to clean out everything, but the sleep allows the brain to clean itself. It allows the DNA to repair, allows a lot of things to repair. So if you could get really good sleep and you add fasting to that as a periodic function during the month, then maybe you get some brain cleanup, some DNA repair, and some cellular cleaning, recycling that really needs to be going on. Chronic stress. So many things you can do. Get on YouTube and just look for stress management. But if you're not controlling your stress, your immune system is going to go down. So now your risk or exposure of some level of age-related disease is going to creep in on you. The telomeres are going to start causing cells to die. You're going to look a lot older than you really are. You're going to act older than you are. You can't do what you want to do. Smoking alcohol. Well, we know we shouldn't be smoking at all. If you're going to have alcohol, they say moderation. In reality, maybe the best is no alcohol, no smoking. Or if you're going to have alcohol, maybe it's that 1 day a month when it's a special occasion. But they cause DNA and mitochondrial damage. So I'll get to the last slide here. So social isolationism, isolation. It affects our immune signaling. Big deal, because if our immune system is not taking care of ourselves, over time, I'm going to go downhill, but much more rapidly, because there's nothing internally for me to maintain control. My quality control system's out the door. It's not there working anymore. So ask yourself, what are you not doing if your lifestyle choice wise? Your eating, your stress, your sleep, your exercise, the big 4. There are others, we talked about them in here. What are you not doing well? What are you overdoing? Maybe some people are just overdoing eating. Maybe some people are overdoing exercise. Maybe some people are stressed out because they're watching TV all the time and they're just constantly bombarded with negativity that affects you whether you recognize it or not. What can you do? Do you have some level of restrictions or limitations? Some pills you're on, some other things that are there. There are some things you can do. When can you start? Well, just start right now today. Do something. And then reassess yourself every 3 months. That gives you more than adequate amount of time to say, is this working? Okay, that's my advice for January 1st, 2026. I wish you the best in whatever program you take on. If you're on medicine or under doctor treatment, before you do anything, please, absolutely, talk to your doctor. Say, hey, doc, I want to do this, and this is the reason why. More than likely, you're going to get support. So That being the end of my show, and I want to say, everybody, again, Happy New Year, and you all have a great time. I'll see you all next week. Bye now.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who was going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to tracycramperkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.